Page 166, My Homes in Montana. This is another harmonization study. I'm redoing this one because I didn't like the way I did it the first time. And that's because I screwed it up. I mean, we do it sometimes, okay. I'm not real good at figuring out harmonies to things. I would much rather they just give us the stinking chords and let me figure out what the chord is. But when they give us the melody here, we got to try and figure out what the chord is based on the melody. Sometimes different chords work. And in my mind, if it sounds okay, it is okay. So that, who knows, there could be different ways of doing this. But they want us to use these chords in the text. And we're in the key of D major, 2 sharps. And they want us to use the 1 chord, the 5/7 chord. I'm using the inversions because they don't say anything about inversions, so I do what I want to do. So here. And then the 4 chord, the primary chords. And in my mind, you could do this whole thing in those primary chords. You don't need the secondary dominant they've stuck in there, and that's the 5/7 chord. And that's the 5/7 of the 4 chord. Go over that, make sure you understand what that chord is. In D major, a 4 chord is 1, 2, 3, 4 here. So we're already using a 4 chord in it. Then we want a 5/7 of that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. Does that chord look familiar? It's a 1 chord. So what we do is we take the add it minor 7th, and we got that. It is a 1/7 chord. If you can remember that the 5/7 of 4 is actually a 1/7 chord. So why don't they just use a 1/7 chord? Well, as far as I'm concerned, they could, but probably has to do with chord progressions. One chord leads into another. Keep in mind that the secondary dominant or any 5/7 chord usually, not always, usually resolves to whatever it's dominant of. It's like the 5/7 chord in the key of D major resolves to the 1 chord. Well, the 5/7 of 4 would resolve to the 4. Yeah. Whatever inversion you're using, I don't know. But remember, the secondary dominants don't always resolve to their whatever they're not. Sometimes they resolve to another 7 chord. So, because a 5/7 of 4 could just as easily resolve to a 5/7 chord. It harmonically seems to sound fun. Now, let's make sure we have this harmony down. It's 3/4 time with a pickup beat. 1, 2. Your fingering is fine. I use a slightly different one because I like to play around with it, and that's what I do. But you can use the fingering in the book. Now, let's see if we can figure out which chord goes where. Well, at the beginning, a lot of them, we can just try the 1 chord. You just try the chords out. Here. They only give us 1 note, so what are you doing? Here, okay. The next measure is same thing. It works. And then the 4 chord. And then the 1 chord again. And then a 5/7 chord. Another one. So I do the whole thing just fine using the primary chords only. This is where I run into problems. Well, they want us to use that secondary dominant. Well, where all that dickens does that go? Because now if it sounds fine with just the primary chords, well, I go back and I think, what about chord progressions? What happens if I resolve the 5/7 of 4 to the 4 chord? So where am I using a 4 chord? I'm using a 4 chord here in like the 3rd full measure. Well, how about then in the 2nd full measure? Could I use the 5/7 of 4? That seems to go okay. Well, then try it at the beginning that way. A 1 chord, and then the secondary dominant, 4. And then what I want want to do is on measure 5, I want to figure out is there any other chord I can use there besides a 1 chord. Well, I need a chord with an A in it. So the 1 chord's got it, of course. The 4 chord does not. The 5/7 of 4 chord does, it's right there. And the 5/7 chord does here. Because the full 5/7 chord is that. We put that on top. We're not using all the notes. So there's 3 possibilities here that use that A. Which one do I want to use? I have no idea. So first I'll try the 1 chord. Start with measure 4. I do measure 4, 5, and 6 because I want to hear the chord progression here. And then 4. Okay, that's the 1 chord. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I can also use the 5/7 chord because that's got an A in it. Here. That doesn't work. So I'll rule out 5/7. We don't want that. So now it's at 1 chord or the secondary dominant, which is the 1 chord with the C added is all the difference is. So it's that sort of works. So 5/7 of 4 chord sort of works there. Here, but I don't like measure 6. Here. That just doesn't work real well. 4 chord doesn't fit. What about 1 chord? Because if I used 5/7 of 4 chord in measure 5, then I would resolve it to a 4 chord. That's why I chose 4 chord. It doesn't fit. A 4 chord doesn't work in measure 6. So that just doesn't work. About a 5/7 chord, because the 5/7 of 4 could resolve to the 5/7, huh? That works a little better, so I could use the 5/7 chord for measure 6, and that works okay. It's got these 2 notes in. I'll just stick with the 5/7 chord then for measure 6 and 7 and 8 here. And then lift up. That seems to work okay. So the solution, I guess, at least for me, and it may not be right, but your teacher can straighten you out. So measure 4 is 4 chord, then the 5/7 chord, and then the 5/7 chord. Stay there. And then we run into a similar problem on measure 13. It's the same. Well, measure 12 is a 4 chord. And then measure 13. Do I use this 5 of 4 again? And then a 5/7? It works. I mean, the sequence of chords seems to fit okay. So I guess I would use the same chord sequence there in measure 13 that I used in measure 5. So start on measure 12, it's a 4 chord. And then back to just the rhythm is the only thing changed. And then here I'll go to the 5/7 chord. Yeah, because then it's a little different after that. See, there's different ways these chord progressions can go, and this is one of the reasons I get so confused, because after you hear the chords for a while, either everything sounds okay or nothing sounds okay. It's just like, you have to get away from it for a while and then come back. In my mind, there's different chords that can be used in this. So I don't know that it's right. And again, to me, if it sounds okay, it is okay. When we try their chord progression, here are their pattern they want. Ooh, chuck, chuck. You see in the second full measure, if I don't include the C, it's not really a 7 chord. I got to have that. So I use 3 notes there. I don't like that either, because some of these chords I'm getting may not be correct. But I'm going to pretend it's close enough and I'm going to go on, because they want us to transpose this to E majors. If we hadn't had enough fun already, let's just do it again. Well, we're going up 1 whole step from D to E. Well, And we are going to use the same chord sequence, so we don't have to figure that mess out. And then for the melody, we're going from 2 sharps to 4 sharps. E major is 4 sharps. I'm going to play in the key of E major now. And I'm just, every note in the music just goes up 1 note. Instead of A, it's a B. Instead of here, it's a D. And once you get going, if you would like, you can use the intervals in the music to help you. So it's here, go down a 5th. Then go up 3rds, 2nd, 3rds, down a 4th. So I took the whole thing up here. Then you just use the same chords. A 1 chord, 4 chord, 5/7 chord, 1, and the 5/7 and 4 chord is the same as a 1/7 chord. You're just adding the 7th to it. So we'll try that. 1 chord, and the 5/7, 4 chord, then the 1 chord. And then the 5/7 chord. I don't know if I like that now, but whatever. And then the 4 chord. And the 4 chord. And then the 1 chord. Whatever. That's sort of that's a really rough and ugly way of doing it. You can tell I struggle with this. Yes, I do. I'm sure I'm not the only one. So one of the wonderful things about doing this, though, and struggling through it, is over time you get used to these chords. These 1 chord and a 5/7 a 1 and 5/7 a 4 and 5/7 a who knows what. You get used to these, and in these different keys, you get accustomed to thinking, play in the key. I'm not worried about which notes are sharped. I'm just playing the notes in the scale because there's no accidentals. That's all I'm doing is playing the notes in the scale, play the notes in the key, and don't worry about the sharps and the flats until there's accidentals, and then everything falls apart. Anyway, your teacher can fix what I screwed up, but that's what I have to go. So if you have questions, ask your teacher. And if I'm the only teacher you have, well, that's unfortunate. You need to get a teacher.